unfortunately, we disagree with that. A lot of people say, okay, if that was the case, why didn't PFP then just submit another name so we could continue the process and then you still remain maybe as chief of staff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we thought about it, and of course that was actually the plan. To let somebody else take the helm while we, fought my case. But in order for that to happen, the governor would have to have done his job as per the regulation of the governor and sent my LB to Holland as per Article 21 of the regulation. Why? Because a LB sent by the Prime Minister to the governor, in the case that he does not agree with it, he either has two choices. He either signs it or he sends it up to Holland. I mean, he does not have the authority to give his personal opinion on the matter. And when you look at my case, I mean, I've been transparent about my screening. I've sent all of my documents to the public for them to see that I actually did pass my screening.
Right.
But of course, the governor's opinion on something that my Peigeberbal says is basically why he is telling me, well, maybe you should wait until so it's a gray area, and I couldn't agree with it legally. So therefore, we did the job and send the LB up, and I think that day after he would have done our next candidate because we had him ready.
I think it's something that you might need to clear up because everyone, when looking at the screening process, we do know that if you have a conviction, it's very, very difficult for you to pass screening. And a lot of people was holding this incident that happened with you. I think it was in 2019,
2018, yes.
2018 that happened with the accident.
Yes, there was. I indeed wasn't an accident, and it was because another driver, a drunk driver, basically flew over the ramp coming over there by, let's say,
right after you passed Motor World, and you're supposed to take that right. He came
straight down.
Wrong.
With a little maneuver, actually, both of our lives. But that wasn't really why we were taken to the police station. Then it was basically because of police brutality. When the officers came there, my father came to see what went on. One of the officers unrightfully pulled out his gun and put it at my father. He pointed it at my father's face, and everything was actually filmed. Luckily. And that's the only reason why I got to beat my case. And because right after that, I immediately ran between my dad and the officer, and I put myself in between him and the gun because I wanted to protect my dad.
Right.
And that was basically the incident why we got arrested. And the judge in first instance convicted us. And when we took it to the appeals court said, wait, actually, according to what all had happened, you guys didn't even have to be prosecuted. It says this in my appeals verdict as well. It said the police were wrong, and the police were actually the ones who escalated the situation. But when you look at the law and you see assault, a simple push can also be classified as that. And the judge also said this in the verdict. They said, well, given the fact that it's a blow to fight, it is just a push. It can be proven, but given all of the circumstances, we cannot deem that act to be punishable by law, and therefore I received no sentence, and therefore I have no criminal record as well. So it's a matter of opinion, but by the end of the day, I can confirm to you that in the past, people have sworn in to become ministers. Actually, in Minnesota, with a conviction.
Correct.
That is also a fact, and that has happened in the past. So President was said. So again, with the governor and his opinion, it's always going to be a gray area. And therefore, I said, if that is the case, send my LB up to Holland and then let them decide, because then we also have some clarity for the people of St. Martin for the future, for anybody else that wants to put on themselves for screening, because it's good for us to know what are the conditions and what are the restrictions, because right now we have absolutely no idea, and it's basically the governor who decides.
Yeah.
Finally, commitment from decision makers is essentially important in this. Things like the nature policy plan have come through, suggestions, beach policy, hillside policy, ministerial decrees, but without a commitment from the decision makers in this room, the Nature Foundation cannot get very far, right? An additional comparison that we have, even from parks that are maybe a little bit closer in comparison than Aruba, for example. Our sister park in Statia, Stenapa, currently has 14 full-time staff and 3 project staff on board, and they're able to do quite a bit in their community with a lot less pressures from development, oil spills, emergency response, things like that. Nobody ever has enough people and nobody ever has enough funding, but there's always an opportunity for us to do more without requiring so much of our citizens. And my last couple of slides are really a reminder that it is time to act. It's too late to leave this for the next generation. It's too late to leave this for the next members of parliament. The time is now. In fact, we're running quite close to the time of no return. So my last statement is that we stand at a critical juncture in our history, faced with the urgent need to preserve the natural beauty and biodiversity of St. Martin. The decisions that we make today will shape the world for our children and our grandchildren to inherit. Our vibrant coral reefs, lush landscapes, and diverse wildlife are not just treasures of today, but they should be the legacies that you leave. Let us commit to making the difficult but necessary choices to ensure that St. Martin remains a thriving sanctuary for all life. Together we can protect our island paradise from passing the point of no return, safeguarding it for the prosperity and the well-being of future generations. It has long been thought that to have economic success, you cannot protect nature. You have to choose one or the other. And not only is that no longer true, there's lots of opportunities for tourism, for development that's sustainable, for ecotourism that's manageable, but it's also too late. If we continue to bleed the resources of St. Martin, there will not be an economic success in any scope in the future. And it might not happen in my generation, it might not happen in the generation after mine, but it will certainly happen, and the decisions that lead to it will be pointed back to today. Thank you very much.
Heard different presentations from you. I don't know if we got a gist of the impact on us as people. We tend to, leave the protection of our ecosystem up to others. And yes, those are the tree huggers or whatever you want to call them. But of course, we're talking about marine protections as well. But I have seen presentations, and I think even in one of our latest science fairs, where the students were able to clearly show the cycle effect of continuing on this trajectory and the impact it would have on our lives. So, of course, availability, we can't do much about climate change, but we could look at more mitigating actions by us as residents, and as well as in terms of awareness of what our actions do to contribute to it. Because the chair going into the sea, tying them down, I guess. But in the sense, once something gets into the water, how we as humans can stop it from hurting our animals. But even the sharks that we're so fearful of, if we completely deplete them, it damages the entire ecosystem, which limits our food. So I think other presentations I've heard internationally really focus on helping the humans to see that it's about them, that their very existence is at threat, and seeing how we can collaborate to make it happen. So the sustainable development part totally has my 100% support, and seeing that we're such a small island nation, and the fact that the coral reef bleaching is already so advanced. I'm looking forward to the legislation and the protection of more sites, because of course it's only when you guys make these presentations we see, yes, we have some protection, but it's really and truly not enough. And I guess collaborating more with our regional partners, because I heard your discussion on limitation of rangers, human resources, finances. Since we are in the kingdom together, isn't it some way that we as kingdom partners can collaborate? Because it wouldn't be as much work everywhere, every time, within the close confines right here within Sabre Station, St. Martin, especially Anguilla. I know they took part in the fisheries discussion recently held in Friendside. So basically I'm saying 100% in support. I think we actively need to identify in here exactly what were the bottlenecks in getting the education and TAYAT ministry more on board, So those would be, I think, the actions that as a parliament, besides waiting on the legislation, that we could actively seek for further collaboration in the interest of protection, preservation, and mitigating further damage.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah. Your social and health insurance.
Recently, or if so, when were there any conversations in regards to that to have something established? And if so, when did that take place and what was the outcome of that, if it can be shared? Also, in regards to more collaboration with TED Ministry and also education, was that already discussed? And if so, when was that? And what was the outcome out of that meeting? So that I also can understand from Parliament side what can take place. And then in connection to the collaboration and the manpower, you mentioned Aruba, you mentioned also Seba, or you mentioned Seba or Stacia. So did that already take place to maybe research collaboration options, and what came out of that discussion?
We know, but being the perpetual optimistic person that I am, I think we should give it a shot again. I mean, I have belabored the issue of the application of the hillside policy until I turned blue in the face. I was the one who, as you would know, proposed a budget amendment to assist Nature Foundation to do a little more than the budget that they had available to them. But somehow I got a feeling that while that was approved and everything, of course, the other issue was the invasive species management program and those kind of things. And but again, we know. We get these type of presentations. We get presentations from acrobatics that basically tells us, in fact, they're a little even more pessimistic than you are about the time that we have to address these many issues. We have the nature management law. We have in which Nature Foundation or an organization such as Nature Foundation should be heard. And the answer to that being, yeah, they can be heard. So then they're heard like after the fact. And what we're seeing now, the pictures that we're seeing, no one really knows how much more to come. GB today. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I started out saying I honestly, really, truly don't know where to start except to say, let's give it a try again. Let's really try to get these matters going. Capacity, human resources, we know it's a problem. We're still trying to figure out how we're going to deal with the ban on plastic bag and plastic straws and styrofoam. We're still trying to figure out how, so legislation, yes, but if we don't have an understanding that the enforcement is also going to be, worked upon, then we're going to have beautiful presentations. We got some policies. We made building code policies that actually needed to be taught how to use. It was so extensive. But even when we do, and people understand it and know, how we have to apply these building codes, and then what? We can't enforce the old building codes right now. How are we going to enforce that kind of updated and modernized building codes? And yeah, I might sound a little like you, but then just let me I don't have any questions. I mean, the obvious is there. And I just hope that we can really sink our teeth in it this time around, and and get some things done, because I share your concern, and I share that we're getting close.
I know that we've had this discussion a lot, but I'm going to bring it forward here for public consumption as well, and for those colleagues of mine that are not aware of it. Besides my finance background, I do have a background in boating. I'm a big advocate since I was born, basically. And one of the things that I brought up since the days of me being Minister of TEAT was about matching French side policies. And French side's Réserve Naturelle, they are very much involved in terms of having this enforcement authority, because anyone that goes with a Dutch side registered boat to Tintamar has to pay a per head fee to go into their marine park. That per head fee used to be €3, but now it's up to €5, if I'm not mistaken. And I think what happened, where we need some clarity on it, and I'm sure the president might be tuned in and might correct me later on, but there was a difference between what was charged to Dutch side registered boats as well as French side registered boats. Now, if we're talking about cooperation with our northern side of the island, that's one of the first areas that we should be cooperating in. And also to the sense of where we need to increase the marine park areas or protected areas, I would expect, from my position, that to be matched for any boats entering into that area. Because I heard you earlier talk about a per boat fee. But if we are going to match, then it needs to be a per head fee of who is coming through that area. That would be my recommendation for any changes in your advice that you would be giving to the COM to start this off with. And moving on from there, I did see that you had a map over the areas that require, there were 4 areas you mentioned that would need, the legislation to protect it. And when you talked about the eastern side of the island, it made me think exactly to what the first speaker here mentioned today, that we are indeed, as all of us know, over 85% dependent on tourism. And we tend to think that all the attention is going towards tourism. But if our livelihoods are dependent on it, that's exactly what happens. And then you do feel that sometimes your citizens get neglected, but in the long run, it's actually all connected, because even though we might be focusing on the coastline of the island, it all originates from within the island, within the interior of the island. And it goes back to what our policy is overall, and what our behaviors are in terms of how we treat our sewage, how we treat our afval water. And I can start from the neighborhoods of Dutch Quarter, I can start from the neighborhoods of St. Peter's, and even though people think that, oh, you're not close to the coastline there, the way that water flows is from a higher point to the lower point. The lower point is on the beach side. So no matter what, it's about enforcement of that policy. And I'm saying all this literally so people can understand the connection from interior land going out to the end of it. And when you think about that eastern part that you're talking about, I'm going to be specific about it with Oyster Pond Lagoon, because you continually mention Simpson Bay Lagoon, but I don't know if anyone has taken a drive lately over to Oyster Pond. there is a river like that's just there 24/7, and that river is septic, it's sewage. I've tested it before. If anyone wants to test any runoff water, they can get a bottle at the SLS lab and pay for it out of pocket, and you can see what's in it. I've done that, and my fear is that, you know, knowing that this is running on the border, but it started from the Dutch side, that we even run the risk of litigation from the French side, not by the French government, by the French side residents, because we are continuously allowing septic to flow through our land onto the border into the lagoon that we share with the French side. And there's no way that I can, you know, sugarcoat that. It has been an issue that I've brought up multiple times. Now, saying all of that, I really would like to know, so when it comes to enforcement, if giving that authority to Nature Foundation will not only look at the coastlines, or like the authority in the sense of getting, you know, you all getting involved in having a little bit more, fining ability, that sort of thing. Because if I'm bringing up two things that I need to understand how it will be managed. So being able to charge boats per head going into the area, and whether or not in our capacity issue that we continuously bring up about VROMI, who would be the right authority to look over the way that wastewater is basically ending up in our coastlines. And yeah, because it's been there, it's been happening for a long time. No one's doing anything about it. So I just want to see what your recommendation would be for that, other than it should be the Ministry of VROMI that should be enforcing this, because we have a lot of options here to handle that stuff. I can go on and on just like my neighbor, because it's something that the more you are aware of the tourism connection and what we're doing to our environment, you're constantly going to have a lot of questions about this, and we all have to be on the same page. Otherwise, we're shooting ourselves in the foot when it comes to our economic survival.
Your social and health insurance is your social and health insurance.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
Your social and health insurance.
A body found in Clarendon is believed to be that of a missing teacher, Daniel Anglin. The 29-year-old educator was last seen on May 13 while on her way to work at a St. Peter Claver Primary School in St. Andrew. The search for Miss Anglin had been ongoing, with her parents and the Jamaica Teachers Association pleading for her safe return. Deputy Superintendent in charge of crime in Clarendon, Clifton Green, says the remains were found in the community of Salt River on a road to a quarry.
I've carried out investigations relative to a missing person. And so far we have found skeletal remains, and those remains have been processed and have been collected for further evidentiary processing. We wouldn't want to say at this time the intricacies of the investigation, but we do say that these skeletal remains have significantly improved information that we seek in the.
The police are investigating the discovery of 2 bodies in a gully along Slipe Road in St. Andrew. Police say the bodies of the 2 males have gunshot wounds to several sections of their bodies. Our reporter Kirk Wright was on the scene and filed this report.
Now what you're looking at is Slipe Road, and the police were alerted to the bodies in the gully behind me sometime after 7 this morning. They say persons heard loud explosions and made the call. Now to get to the bodies in the gully, you have to walk through this track that takes you to the back of these 2 buildings, Ferrin and Davis Trucking and the White Castle Lounge. The bodies are meters apart. What we can tell you that there are spent casings, and in some areas we're seeing actual bullets beside the bodies. Both men are clad in short jeans pants and t-shirt, one in a blue t-shirt, the other in a brown t-shirt. Both men were wearing ski masks, and it appears as if that shooting took place early this morning. So far the police say the men are identified, but crime scene detectives are on the scene trying to find out who they are at this time.